Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts about the 40K universe. I am your host, Gershwin, and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue with the Imperium as we talk about part 3 of the citizens of the Imperium. Now, if you don't remember, we're going over the worlds first, then talking about what life would be like if you lived on that world and if you were an Imperial citizen, and then we'll jump on to another world. So let's get into part 3 of 40 Facts about the Imperial citizens. A fortress world is a type of planet within the Imperium of Man that serves as a bastion of the Imperium's defense against some constant and persistent threat to Imperial space. These worlds are extremely well defended, usually with large numbers of Imperial Guard regiments and Imperial Navy assets, and their populations and economies are wholly geared towards meeting the demand of Imperial defense. Fortress worlds are uncommon but necessary planets. They are established to act as military strongholds, staging points, and physical deterrents. Worlds like these are as much of a roadblock as they are bastions. They are often established on habitable planets and built up for warfare. Linked together, they are able to form blockades used to stop the enemy and prevent them from spreading out into the Imperium. Life on a fortress world is steeped in military discipline and doctrines. From the moment the citizen wakes up until they go to sleep, they train and operate as a military unit. All citizens of fortress worlds prepare for the day they are called upon to push back the darkness that sits beyond their walls. Cities are giant fortresses studded with artillery weapons, and industry is focused almost exclusively on manufacturing machines for war. Those old enough to enlist in the Imperial Guard or Planetary Defense Force are often required to do so, and even those too young to infirm find ways to serve. It's not uncommon to have a whole generation of family in service to the Imperium at one time, and many such Imperial Guard regiments boast a rich and proud history. Soldiers from fortress worlds have been trained and raised to serve in war, and by the time they reach maturity, they are well versed in the art of war and the doctrines of the Tactica Imperialis. Each has been long trained to destroy the enemies of the Imperium, particularly those whose threat forced their world to be fortified in the first place. Fortress worlders are disciplined, honorable, loyal, and with the highest regard for integrity, and each is already a proficient combatant long before they are taken to serve in the Imperial Guard. The most famous fortress world in the Imperium is Cadia, which defends the Cadian Gate, the only stable passage through the warp from the Eye of Terror into open Imperial space, from the constant assault of the forces of chaos. A forbidden world, also called a quarantine world, is a planet that has been declared off limits to contact with Imperial citizens by the government of the Imperium of Man, usually by the express order of the Inquisition. The existence of forbidden worlds is rarely made obvious to Imperial citizens, but there are many of them throughout the Imperial space. Travel to these worlds is forbidden except for the most well-informed and heavily armed expeditions, and even then, only with a very good reason. Death worlds, alien empires, or planets where the creatures of the warp have broken through into real space are all examples of quarantine worlds, as are planets racked with plague. Some worlds are quarantined because no one can fathom the origins of what has been found there, be it mysterious artifacts or ancient alien cities. It is thought better to live in ignorance of what lies on such worlds than risk it becoming a threat. Other worlds are quarantined because every Imperial expeditionary mission there has failed to return. Planets are often quarantined by the pronouncement of the Inquisition, especially if they have uncovered some warp taint or Xenos infestation that cannot be cleansed. Many forbidden worlds possess great resources that would extremely bring value to the Imperium if they were properly explored and exploited, but there are enough tales of ancient horrors awoken on sinister alien worlds that few adepts would try to defy a planetary quarantine, particularly one backed by the inquisitorial warrant. Quarantine worlds are marked as forbidden for visitation, settlement, or contact of any kind. Some might be seemingly benign spheres, others might be foreboding rocks, but the Imperium has determined there is some terrible threat that outweighs any possible usefulness they might contain. Once the edict is given, the Imperial Navy provides the military and defense systems the situation requires. from message buoys at the outskirts of the system to patrolling ships and orbiting weapon platforms. No unauthorized craft is allowed anywhere near the space, and any found are generally destroyed without question. In case of extreme risk to the sector, the human population is often annihilated to prevent any potential escape. Regardless of whether anyone survives this destruction, no one is allowed to set foot on those planets without proper authorization. To be discovered breaking a rite of quarantine is a death sentence. Details of life on a quarantine world are scarce, as most who could provide them are trapped on the surface or captured and likely put to immediate death. Tales whisper of worlds covered with psychic storms that can burn sanity like firewood, or where ethereal remnants of dead races still stalk the ruins of once grand temples, or simply where events occurred so terrible that the Imperium insists they remain secret forever. Populations might vary from teeming masses of unknowing tainted with a warp-based plague, to the wretched survivors of an alien invasion deemed too spiritually contaminated to be allowed outside. Though inquisitors often seek to interrogate such individuals for information about the world they came from and how they were able to escape from it, most captains readily dispose of them through an air gate should any official investigation draw near their ship. On some quarantine worlds, the remaining inhabitants are perhaps unaware of their status, knowing only that travel from their planet has been dormant for long generations, and such is the way the Emperor has decreed it. On others, where the populace knows of their fate, many lose hope quickly and sacrifice themselves in an attempt to thwart any spread of the threat. A few, however, may be motivated to find a way to beat the odds and counterattack the threat, whether it is killing the creature or pathogen or containing and eradicating warp contamination. There are no records of any world ever being released from quarantine, though many planets have petitioned for generations, claiming that they have freed themselves from any taint. Escape from a quarantine world, however, is very different. Leaving under one's own power is usually met with death at the same hand of gunners or interceptor pilots. Any travel detected leaving the planet's surface is hailed once and then eliminated. Station forces must conduct reconnaissance themselves, whether by scans from orbit or aerospace drones, and aircraft doing more in-depth sensor sweeps, and visual checks from within the atmosphere. It is in these instances that the local population may attempt to commandeer or stow away aboard these craft, seeking a one-time ticket to a larger orbiting ship where they can hopefully disappear within the ship's crew. People from worlds marked for quarantine face immeasurable odds in getting off planet and staying free. Whether the individual lived there at the time of the event, was born afterwards, or has been to the surface liberating inhabitants or scavenging for ancient relics, anyone who has been past the restriction point of the edict lives on borrowed time. Depending on the nature of the quarantine and the amount of ordnance preventing departure, those who flee risk capture and execution, and therefore must remain on the run. It is no surprise that they seldom ally themselves with any singular group for too long. Anyone can come from a quarantine world, for it is the nature of the world or the accident that determined the need for enforced segregation, not the people. Adeptus Mechanicus research stations, agri-worlds, hive worlds, all of these have been victim of such accidents, condemning their inhabitants to live on gradual declines and eventual extinction. Those who survive and escape are some of the most versatile and resourceful people in the galaxy. They are also some of the least trusting and secretive, relying on themselves and often willing to strand comrades in order to stay one step ahead of the authorities. In the rarest of circumstances, the left hand of the Emperor finds these individuals and offers them a chance to stop running in exchange for their service. It is a very brave or very foolish person who refuses such an offer. Another residency where it would be less common to find yourself in is a research station. Imperial research stations are listed in the classification system of Imperial worlds, but are not worlds themselves. Some are based in orbit around the planet or on an asteroid, or on the surface of a planet such as a dead world or a death world. The Imperium and the Adeptus Mechanicus have many research stations across the stars to collect data in an often vain attempt to better control mankind's surroundings. The aim of such stations vary, with researchers studying planetary storm patterns, dissecting captured Xenos corpses, charting the stability of warp entry locations, or probing the remains of ancient civilizations. Research stations provide a stable base of operations to tech priests, scribes, adepts, servitors, and the small army sometimes necessary to support them in these often remote locations. Most researchers never live to see any conclusive results. Once committed to a station, few ever leave, and their tasks are passed on through generation without end. Useful results might never occur, or be lost in the impossible depths of imperial bureaucracy. But sometimes glimmers do emerge and catch the eve of those looking for aid in the defense of mankind. Research stations are often found throughout the Imperium, in almost every situation, locale, or environment. Though many are in otherwise inhabitable planets, they are invariably isolated or secluded from general populations, making contact only to restock supplies or take on replacement staff. Most social interactions at any given facility are bound with scripted and tote language, the original meaning of which might be long lost. Control and predictability governs daily life on a research station, which can include extended families of expert fabricators who spin and polish massive crystalline lenses, or of brute haulers transferring the vats of ink necessary to transcribe daily findings. All understand that the security and the progress of the station's research program requires very strict scheduling to ensure optimal results. Time not spent on duty, such as meals or sleep, is measured and monitored. Sites like these are similar to manufactorums and forges in that the master timetable dictates every quality of life. While this can vary considerably, there is generally one constant. Regardless of individuals' wants and needs, their research always takes priority over them. Whatever the project is, everyone from the lead tech priest and the administrator down to the lowliest scribe and indentured laborer believes that their efforts contribute to the continual greatness of the Imperium. They believe this despite the fact that, unknown to most working on them, some stations dance precariously on the thin line between sanctioned research and abominable tech heresy. Though tech priests and scholars are often the core of these stations, there are also guards, codifiers, and support staff who make sure that the station as a whole runs smoothly. Regardless of what person role within the strata of the facility, virtually everyone claims understanding of the basic nature of the work. This comprehension is often poor at best. Information is commonly mangled and distorted, not only from a generation to a generation, but also from one research assignment to the next. Instilled in all of them is a drive to make sure that the work continues. They are all in a perpetual state of analysis regarding their task, and the time it takes to accomplish them. As a result, they are incredibly focused and punctual, and largely dispassionate about anything except their own specific assignments. This segmentation of tasks often makes the project as a whole undecipherable, as those who begin the experiment are often long dead, and the purpose of the research has either been diffused or lost entirely. In its stead is a misplaced reverence for the hypothesis outcome, and researchers eliminate anything that contradicts the desired results, regardless of what actually is found. While the Machine Cult and the Imperial Guard both have significant numbers on many stations, other agencies provide staff and also draw personnel from them. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica operates many facilities to study the tides of warp, and no matter the type of research, the massive transcription and data sorting required can lead many to the position within the Adeptus Administratum. The dark and remote locations, as well as some of the highly dangerous research, also generate the deformed and shunned mutants. Some of these might in turn become subjects for research, a future only slightly better than the Torch. And those were 40 facts about Imperial citizens in the Warhammer 40K universe. I hope you guys enjoyed this part 3. As you can see, really none of these worlds would be worlds that I would want to live in. I'm still putting my money on the garden world, or civilized worlds for that matter. I would love to live in a garden world. But thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We also have a Patreon, so if you want to help us continue putting out Warhammer 40K content, please jump on over to our Patreon channel. It's a simple $1 a month, and you get extra videos for the Greater Wall, and we're going to be doing some Halloween specials, so we're going to be putting out some Halloween lore. So be sure to check that out. Thank you for liking, commenting, and sharing, and you guys are awesome. I'll catch you in the next one. This was Gershwin with One Mind Syndicate, signing out.